President Joe Biden announces his pick to replace General Mark Milley, plus what we know about F-16s and Ukraine. All of that and more today, May 26th, 2023. Good morning, early birds. I'm Zimone Perez, and this is the Early Bird Brief, produced by Defense News and Military Times. Just a quick note for our listeners, we will not have an episode on Monday in observance of Memorial Day. But please tune in Tuesday for a special episode about the nomination of General C.Q. Brown to lead the Joint Chiefs of Staff. First up, Defense Secretary Lloyd Austin said yesterday that he hopes training for Ukraine pilots on American-made F-16 fighter jets will begin in the coming weeks. Pentagon leaders warned that the jets will not be a, quote, magic solution to the war. Austin and Joint Chiefs Chairman General Mark Milley spoke about the training at a Pentagon press conference.
During today's meeting, several allies and partners also discussed plans for training Ukrainian pilots on fourth-generation fighter aircraft, including the F-16. And planning and executing this training will be a significant undertaking, but the coordination of this contact group will help make that possible.
Milley said providing 10 F-16s could cost $2 billion, including maintenance. Austin said Ukraine will need to sustain and maintain the aircraft and have enough munitions. Austin said Dutch and Danish ministers are working with the U.S. on the effort. Norway, Belgium, Portugal, and Poland offered to contribute to training as well. Austin says the training would bolster Ukraine in the long run, but not necessarily as part of a counteroffensive against Russia. European countries have said they are talking about which countries may have F-16s available. President Joe Biden agreed just last weekend to allow other nations to send their own U.S.-made jets to Kyiv. The United States had opposed sending aircraft to Ukraine. The U.S. initially refused to approve aircraft transfers or training because fears that it would escalate tensions with Russia. U.S. officials also had argued against the F-16 by saying that learning to fly and logistically support such an advanced aircraft would be difficult and take months. Ukraine has long sought the sophisticated fighter to give it an edge in combat. The Biden administration's decision was a sharp reversal. Air Force Brigadier General Pat Ryder said this week that the U.S. decision on the F-16 was part of a broader, long-term effort to meet Ukraine's future military needs. Another important story, President Joe Biden announced his pick for chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. Biden nominated Air Force Chief of Staff General C.Q. Brown to replace Chairman General Mark Milley. Biden applauded Brown for his experiences in command roles during a ceremony at the White House's Rose Garden.
So today, I have the honor of introducing my nominee to be the next chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Charles Q. Brown, Jr. General, welcome. General Brown's a warrior, descended from a proud line of warriors. His father, a U.S. Army Colonel, C.Q. Brown, served in Vietnam. His grandfather, U.S. Army Master Sergeant Robert E. Brown, Jr., led a segregated unit in World War II. And the command pilot, General Brown, brings to this role more than 3,000 hours of flying experience, including 130 combat hours.
As chairman, Brown would advise the president on military matters. That ranges from the potential defenses of Taiwan if China invades, to NATO's efforts to support Ukraine as it defends itself against Russia. He would also regularly consult with top military leaders across all services to gather their thoughts on strategy, operations, and budgets. The Senate voted unanimously to confirm Brown's nomination to become Air Force Chief of Staff just almost 3 years ago in June 2020. That made him the first black person to head a branch of the U.S. military. He is expected to be easily confirmed as the nation's top military officer, but Brown may have to navigate a barrier for Pentagon nominees in the Senate. Alabama Republican Senator Tommy Tuberville has placed a hold on Defense Department nominations. His hold revolves around the Pentagon's decision to provide leave and travel services so troops can attain abortion services. Brown has focused on overhauling the service during his 3 years leading the Air Force. His signature plan, dubbed Accelerate, Change, or Lose, has become something of a mantra for him. This effort involves reshaping the service's structure, changing how it prepares for potential conflicts with major adversaries like Russia and China, and divesting old and outdated airframes that he and other Air Force leaders say would be unsuited for future high-end wars. We will have a special episode on General Brown's nomination next Tuesday, so be sure to tune in. In other news, current rules punish military widows for remarrying. For more on this, Capitol Bureau Chief Leo Shane III joins us for today's episode. Leo Shane III, Military Times Bureau Chief at the Capitol, thank you for joining us today.
Thank you for the invite.
So, there's a bit of an issue for military widows that find new love before a certain age. Could you kind of tell us what the issue is here?
Yeah, look, this has been a fight for years up on Capitol Hill. It's called the remarriage penalty. And what happens is if a military widow or widower gets remarried before age 55, they effectively forfeit most of their veteran and military survivor benefits. So we're talking about a pretty substantial sum of money for folks who have been using that earned benefit as a source of income. The rules are set up so that if you're older than 55 and you get remarried, you get to hold on to that. But, a lot of veterans advocates and military widows and widowers have said that's just not fair. There shouldn't be a penalty for getting remarried. There shouldn't be a penalty for moving on with life and finding new love. So they're up again this year trying to convince Congress to move ahead to change these laws and to not penalize them when they start a new relationship.
Yeah, so how much are we talking about in penalties for spouses who do decide to forego the penalties and get married anyway?
Yeah, we're talking about a lot. I mean, we're talking about, anywhere from between $1,000 to $3,000, even more dollars a month. So we're talking $42,000, $40,000 a year in survivors' benefits. And look, these benefits are meant to be pretty generous because they're designed for service members who die as a result of their service while in the service. So, military families make a lot of sacrifices moving around all over the world, deployments, time away. And especially military spouses, have trouble holding on to careers with the frequent moves and with the frequent demands on their families. So when a tragedy like this strikes, the idea is to make sure that they can be that they can survive. They can be made whole in some way and not have to scrape and force their way through just to make ends meet. But just because individuals have gotten remarried doesn't mean that those issues aren't there, and it doesn't mean that their family service has disappeared either. I mean, these are really earned benefits. They're not given just out of generosity. They're given because of the contributions a service member makes during their time in the military. So advocates are saying, look, why take them away just because the family situation has changed?
Yeah, and so what are veterans groups or even lawmakers doing to address this problem?
Yeah, so there is a bipartisan bill in both the House and the Senate, the Love Lives On Act, that's under consideration again this year. That's being heavily pushed by TAPS and a handful of other groups who have been on this issue. But look, this has been an issue for years. I wrote about this back in 2018. I wrote about this back in 2015. This is not a new issue, and it's one that comes down to an issue of funding, an issue of where, what offsets are needed. How can Congress just make numbers work? It's about $2.7 billion over 10 years, which is a lot of money, but not necessarily a lot of money as part of the larger federal budget. But there are rules in the House about offsets and Senate Republicans who require some balancing here. So it's going to be the same fight it's been every year, which is, can they find a way to pay for this, to make the numbers work, and at the same time to help these families be made whole?
Definitely. Well, Leo Shane III, thank you for stopping by the podcast today.
Anytime.
Thanks, Leo. For more conversations like that one, please like and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Also on your radar for today, the founder of a far-right extremist group was given the longest sentence to date for actions during the January 6th insurrection. Stuart Rhodes founded the Oath Keepers extremist group. He was sentenced to 18 years in prison for organizing the plot for his followers to attack the U.S. Capitol in an effort to stop Congress from certifying Joe Biden's Electoral College victory. The Oath Keepers leader was found guilty in November of seditious conspiracy along Florida chapter leader Kelly Meigs, and 4 other Oath Keepers were convicted of the rarely used charge during a second trial in January. 3 of Rhodes' co-defendants were acquitted of seditious conspiracy, but convicted of other crimes. Rhodes called himself a, quote, political prisoner before the judge handed down the sentence. He said his only crime is opposing those who are, quote, destroying the country. Prosecutors told the judge in federal court that Rhodes remained a threat to democracy. They asked for a 25-year sentence. Rhodes is the first person charged in the attack to be sentenced for seditious conspiracy. Here's why it matters. It's another landmark in the Justice Department's sweeping January 6th investigation. It has led to convictions against the top leaders of two far-right extremist groups. Authorities say the Oath Keepers and the Proud Boys traveled to Washington prepared to keep President Donald Trump in power at all costs. Rhodes' sentencing comes just weeks after former Proud Boys national chairman Enrique Torrio was convicted of seditious conspiracy. Prosecutors said it was a separate plot to block the transfer of presidential power. The Proud Boys will be sentenced in August and September. There are more than 1,000 Capitol riot cases. A little more than 500 of the defendants have been sentenced. And now, here are some other stories that we're hearing chirps about. Our team at Army Times is reporting that a soldier was killed in a military vehicle accident at a range in Kuwait. Our team at Navy Times is also reporting that a ship sunk off Japan's coast in World War II was located off the coast of Okinawa. It will remain there as a final resting place for more than 80 soldiers who died during its final battle. And the Associated Press is reporting that the head of the Russia paramilitary Wagner Group is transferring control of Bakhmut to the Russian military. And, on this day in history, in 1969, Apollo 10 returned to Earth. That's it for us this morning. To get more top stories and breaking news, go to defensenews.com/EBB to subscribe to the Early Bird Brief newsletter. If you liked what you heard, give us a like wherever you get your podcasts. And be sure to follow us on social media at @defense_news and @Military Times. Also, please rate us and be sure to leave a comment. Today's Early Bird Brief is hosted and produced by me, Zimone Z. Perez. Today's episode features stories by the Associated Press, Bryant Harris, Stephen Losey, and Leo Shane III. Have a great day and have a good Memorial Day weekend.